Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Podcast on D-Shot. I'm going to give a little bit of a plug here because my next two podcasts after this for everybody are going to be audio only podcasts, as those two conversations will include some music tracks of the Kenosha Pops Band, as well as a chance for one of those to have the United States Marine Band, the President's Own. As the next podcast after this will be Dr. Jim Ripley from the Carthage College Music Department. He's the director of bands over there. And Craig Gall, the musical director and conductor of the Kenosha Pops. But another Whitewater edition of this podcast for today is the sports information director at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, and Chris Lindeke. Chris, how are you doing?
Doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Good. Just trying to figure out what my next career step is, but stepping into the podcast world a little bit right now too. So my first question for you, and this might be a little bit of a toughie. You've been the sports information director at Whitewater since the fall of 2014. Obviously, there's some moments that before you got to Whitewater, some that I witnessed. Obviously, the Cordell Young game winner, the Mary Merg 2 buzzer beater game. But in your tenure as a sports information director at Whitewater, what is the moment or game that you go back and look at and say that was a fun event or fun moment to witness?
Oh man, I mean, there's a lot of them. As you know, as a follower of what we do and of our teams, there's so many over the last 7 years that I could point to, but I think two probably come to mind right away. The first one actually happened in my first year on the job. It was the 2014 national championship that we won in football. Just being down in Salem, being there around Christmas time, around the holiday season, it was kind of cool. Just the way they had set up like the hotel and stuff that we were staying at. Obviously, everything around the Stag Bowl is really cool. And then it was kind of heightened just the attention on us with the fact that Coach Lippold was leaving at the end of the season to take his job at Buffalo. So just that whole week was just something I'll never forget. And having to do that just a few months into this job, was really an eye opener. But it was a lot of fun to see not only all the pageantry and the just the attention around the game, but it was fun to see us win too. And I'll never forget, in the moments after the game, just being on the field with my phone and camera, just trying to get, as much, post-game content as I could, and, celebrating with our administrators, and winning for the sixth time in 8 years was really just an unbelievable accomplishment in an era where there seems to be more and more parity with North Central, now the defending champion in football, having won their first national championship. So just given the fact that we were able to do that and kind of cap off that amazing 8-year run in my sixth or seventh month on the job was something I'll never forget. And then I think the second event that comes to mind, and really it's more of a play, but we were hosting the NCAA softball regional, and I think it was 2018. And
is that the Kate Catino?
It was the Kate Catino catch. So that's what I was getting at, is that was one of the most amazing plays I've ever seen, live, just given the circumstances and everything that was on the line. For Caitlin to, leap up and make that catch, basically her glove over the fence, to pull that one back in for, I think Julia Camardo was the pitcher at the time, and just seeing her reaction and knowing that they had gone to the same high school. And there was just a lot to that catch that kind of culminated on that day. And it ends up being a top play on SportsCenter that night, thanks to the talents and the camera work of UWW-TV, which we have here on campus, which I know you're familiar with too, Daniel. So those two things really come to mind, but there's so many other fun events too that we've had. Just as I was talking, I was thinking about the 2017 NCAA tournament when we hosted the men's basketball regional. That game between UW-Whitewater and Augustana was really a special event. Even though we lost the game, that was something I'll never forget. Women's basketball has had a number of runs. The golf team, going to the NCAA championship for the first time. I was fortunate enough to travel to a track and field championship in my first year, and watch us win 4 national championships, and see some really talented athletes up in the North Country of New York. So those are really those two, and then there's just so many others that I could point to, but it's really been a special 7 years at UW-Whitewater.
I was just kind of like, the Kate Catino thing didn't pop in my head until you kind of mentioned it, but I was kind of I thought you were going to somehow go the Tony Gamina tip drill touchdown, or the what game was it against Oshkosh with like less than a minute to go, the Drew Patterson. As long as I get it right, that it was Drew Patterson that had the touchdown, not Nick.
It was Drew, yep.
The one where he was like trapped on the left sideline and then somehow got blocking to get in the end zone with like less than a minute to go.
Yeah, those are both really good ones. Gamina's catch, I know that ended up on SportsCenter later that night too. We were playing Morningside at Morningside. They were number 1 in NAIA. We were number 1 in NCAA Division III. That was a great event. I was there. ESPN actually broadcasted the game.
What we would call ESPN, because I remember watching that and it's like, yeah, it's really ESPN. It's like a really crappy version of UWW TV, because UWW TV probably would have done that better, but that was the stream that got cut short because like 30 seconds left in the game, J-Rat scores that touchdown, and all of a sudden the stream says, "Oh, your event is ended."
Oh, did it really? I didn't even know that. I never even knew that.
So. Your little known thing. I guess I'll jump to this question, even though I know with my time covering UW-Whitewater, I definitely have my favorite coaches, obviously, that I've interviewed or obviously have some good friendships with. I would say that there's at least maybe one on my least favorite. But are there who are your favorite coaches that you've worked with at Whitewater, and are there any that maybe that are tougher or present some challenges to work with?
Well, I think they all present their own unique challenges, just because they are such competitive people and they want to do what's best for their programs to win. And I'm here to help them do that. So ultimately, at the end of the day, I mean, I look at those challenges as they're really, honestly, they're good things about that person, because most of them point in the direction of A, they either want to help their program win, or B, they want to better the student athlete experience at UW-Whitewater. So I really look at those as actually strengths of those individuals. There are some personalities here, as you know. For me, I could point to favorite moments with every one of them. We have such a talented, deep coaching staff here. John Vodenlich, Pat Miller, Carrie Corallo, Jen Regan, Stacy Boudreau, Kevin Bullis. I mean, the list goes on and on. Mike Johnson. They've all had success. I mean, you look at someone like Andrea Wieland, who's our golf coach. I think she's been here for 5 years and she's won 4 WIC championships. So coming in right off the bat and just, catapulting that program into a run of success. Ryan Kwame is another one who, just kind of goes about his business and seems to win WIC championships year after year. Brenda Volk has had an enormous amount of success, another kind of a quiet competitor within our department, but she is a joy to work with. And, she's somebody who enjoys kind of the stats part of it too. So like if, we wanted to talk about statistics or, kind of dig into that kind of sports info stuff, she's someone who will do that with me. And, but they're all very grateful for what we do as an administration. And so at the end of the day, we may get in an argument here or there. We may disagree on something, but we're all going after the same thing, which is, like I said, A, to help our teams win, and B, to enhance our student athlete experience.
I might as well also hit on another part of a coaching side of things. obviously during your tenure, you've now had two former UW-Whitewater coaches now are Division I. Lance Lippold going from Whitewater to Buffalo to now Kansas. And as of yesterday, Ned Shuck is the head coach at I don't know how to, is it Bellarmine or something?
Bellarmine, yeah, I think that's how you say it.
Yeah. So what is that? How much does that add to like your time at Whitewater as the SID?
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to working with those two individuals if you want. You know, they're both really they're competitive. You know, Lance Leipold is, you know, like I alluded to earlier, and I probably sound like a broken record, but he everything he did on a daily basis was to help his program win or to enhance their student athletes experience. And he was or well, and still is, he's a winner. And, you know, at the end of the day, to watch him kind of go about his business on a day-to-day basis, to work with him for that 2014 season when, you know, right before our game in I think it was the third round of the NCAA playoffs against Wartburg, you know, we all kind of get hit over the head with this, you know, learning that he's headed to Buffalo. And honestly, he couldn't have been more professional about it. He couldn't have been easier to work with, even given that difficult circumstance with, you know, essentially 3 weeks left in the season, or what could have been 3 weeks and what ended up being 3 weeks. But at the end of the day, he's also a very kind individual and somebody that, you know, really cared about his coaching staff, the support staff. You know, he regularly points to Dr. Paul Plinsky, who is now at Colorado Pueblo, as somebody who, you know, was really a prominent figure in helping him to get to where he is today. So clearly he has an appreciation for what we do. And so again, it made it really easy to work with him. Ned Shuck was somebody who came in, I believe, the same year I came in 2014.
Because
And
that was that crazy little thing where Tim Fehr got let go. If I'm right.
Yeah, correct. Yes. So Tim Fehr was the head coach prior to Coach Shuck. And so Ned came in, I think it was August of 2014. So maybe a little bit after I had arrived. And I actually did. I just texted him yesterday and said, "Hey, you know, congratulations." So we still keep in touch. And I do keep in touch with Lance as well on various things every now and then. But Ned and I had a really good relationship when he was here. We shared kind of a similar dry sense of humor. You know, we both seen a lot of movies from the 90s and you know, kind of comedies from the 90s and early 2000s. So we kind of bonded over that. He had actually come from Heidelberg University right before he was at Whitewater. He was the head coach at Heidelberg, which is in Ohio, and Heidelberg was in the same conference as Capital, which is where I came from. So we had a little connection there, and we both knew the SID, Jeff Garvin at Heidelberg. And so we, you know, we would talk about him and make fun of him behind his back. And Jeff's a great guy. So he, you know, we obviously joked a lot in my 3 years at Capital. But with Ned, we had that kind of connection point, and from those connection points, I should say, and from there, it made our working relationship very good. And I could always see he was hungry. He was a guy who I don't think was ever satisfied, you know, despite all of his successes. And he recruited some guys who have been just outstanding student athletes here at UW-Whitewater. You know, I'm not sure, Daniel, how closely you followed the wrestling program when you were here, but you know, he coached a guy like Jordan Newman. He recruited guys like Mike Tortorisi, Devin Tortorisi, Hazen Rice. I believe Jarrett Shinhoster, who's here now, was recruited by Coach Shuck and his assistant, Justin Wharton. So that's a guy who knew what he was doing. He took a program that had a high amount of success, and he continued that success. And it's almost kind of the same with Coach Leipold when he came in 2007. You know, that program had been to back-to-back Stag Bowls. And so he, you know, not only made them a national champion, he continued that that legacy and that program that Bob Brezowitz had built. So in that light, I guess they were kind of almost a little bit, they kind of came in under similar circumstances. And because of the competitors and the winners that they are, they maintain that success and built on it.
I was gonna randomly add in terms of covering the wrestling team. There was one time before you got to Whitewater where the wrestling team was on a road trip and they didn't get back till like 11:30 at night. And I don't know if I was just trying to get an interview in, but I think I interviewed Tim Fader in like one of the locker rooms at 11:30 at night in the Williams Center. And there was like one door open to be able to even get in the Williams Center at that night, or I had to wait until they actually got back. So that's kind of my funny story about the wrestling program at Whitewater. We got to hit on obviously like the NFL stuff. Obviously Jake Kumero's in the NFL. Blanchard was in the NFL for a little bit, another former Warhawk. The big one right now, Quinn Miners got drafted. What were your kind of overall impressions on like his Senior Bowl performance, his pro day, and kind of how he kind of obviously he presented himself amazingly with kind of obviously being on other podcasts and kind of the using his own using the, I guess, platform would be the right word to kind of promote or raise money for the offensive line coach's daughter at Hartford. So what were your kind of thoughts on all those things relating to Quinn Miners?
Yeah, and Daniel, I can't really speak to his football prowess. I'm not a football guy. I have watched a lot of football at the college level and at the pro level, but I can speak to it as what he did for himself, off the field. And certainly we heard a lot of buzz from football people and his agent and, various staff members around him and around the program that his pro day really confirmed what a lot of them already knew based off of his Senior Bowl performance, that this is a guy who's going to go in the NFL draft and he's going to go on the second day or the first day. I think there was an article or a blog or two that had him going as high as 37. But he ends up going on the second day, which is ultimately what, a lot of the people around him thought. And I think even he expected to go on day two. And he did, but speaking in terms of what he did around him, I don't know that I've ever seen an athlete at our level who, has professional aspirations and, projects to be a professional, do more for himself in terms of the marketing side. We see a lot of pro athletes kind of handling their own marketing now. That's really been a trend over the past 10 years or so, especially with the increased social media and the way that athletes are communicating on social media. They're really kind of taking marketing into their own hands. And Quinn really did that. And he did it really well. Obviously he played on the gut and creating the Belly of the Beast shirts, but he did it not only as as something that would gain a lot of attention, but he did it for an excellent cause. You alluded to Hugs for Elena. Elena Shelsta is the name of the young girl who has cancer, and the money that all of that attention that came, that money is going for Hugs for Elena. And to have the savvy and the marketing chops that he did, to really pull that off, working with, I think it was a company out of Milwaukee that made the t-shirts, was really amazing to see. I mean, I just kind of backed off, in terms of even the media side of it. He was really good with the media. And one of the things he did constantly was say, hey, it's a priority of mine to make sure we take care of our local media, the folks who have been covering us, since I've been here. And he did, and he was outstanding. We did 3 or 4 Zoom calls. We obviously had his availability, after his pro day. And he was a pro. I mean, it was like he was a 5 or 6 year NFL veteran, talking to these reporters and handling his business the way he did. So, from an off the field perspective, I don't know if, a 22-year-old can do a whole lot better than he did. And as somebody who works at UW-Whitewater, I couldn't be more proud of Quinn and what he's done and what he continues to do. I know there was an article that came out just today, I think, that we retweeted from the Warhawk football account on Twitter. Just about, it was from, I think, one of the local Denver reporters that was talking about, hey, he had no season in 2020. He, comes from Division III. He's got to learn a new position, because he played guard in college here at UW-Whitewater, and now he's going to have projects to be a center. Despite all those things, he might play this season. So that was really cool to see, that come out today.
I'm gonna kind of hit on how cool was it on draft day, even though we had all the Aaron Rodgers mess in terms of but I would say, I mean the second day of the draft is to have Quinn Miners get drafted on the same day that Lance Lippold went and took the Kansas job. How cool of a day was that for like just UW-Whitewater athletics in general?
It was a banner day, without winning a short of winning a national championship. I mean, that's probably one of the craziest, 24 to 48 hour periods that I've ever had as a professional. Just the magnitude of those two news items coming out. I think it was literally the same day. I think it was
because
morning.
It was that morning Lance took the job, and
right.
Then that night.
Yeah. I mean, I was actually traveling up to the WIC Golf Championship that day. It was in Reedsburg, and UW-Whitewater was designated as host for the event. So I was traveling up just to be the administrative rep on hand. And so I actually pulled over. I was at a Road Ranger, some gas station along the way, and I was just like going nuts on my phone, just trying to get all this information out. I created a graphic real quick. And we had heard some buzz. I think it was just kind of the night before and maybe the day before that Lance might get the job at Kansas. And, so I'd created a couple things in advance, but just being in that moment and having to pull over and just start, sending stuff out was pretty crazy. But that night, excuse me, I came home and I was watching the draft, and we had expected that Quinn might go in the 70s or the 80s in the draft. And so I was a nervous wreck, for that last part of the third round. And I think he ended up getting taken in the early hundreds or late 90s. I forget. It seems like that was 10 years ago, but I do remember just sitting on my couch and, I had my laptop up. I was texting with our student graphic designer, Andy Roll, just, hey, be ready. It could happen at any moment here. I was looking at Twitter, constantly refreshing it, and finally to see his name come across, and the fact that he's going to Denver, a very proud organization, an organization that's had some success. They've won a Super Bowl in the last 10 years. I mean, just to see that was, it just made it all worth it. All the work that we did with his pro day, all the work that he did with his media availability, all the work that our coaches had done with him, leading up to that. It made it all worth it to see his name scroll across. And I mean, what a huge moment for UW-Whitewater too, to get that kind of national spotlight with one of our student athletes. I don't know if anyone here, or I don't know. I know people here appreciated the moment and they soaked it in, but I don't know if they realized just how big it was. Daniel, the attention that goes to the NFL draft every year. And so it was just, I can't put into words how special that was to see as somebody who's worked with Quinn and as somebody who works at UW-Whitewater. Just the pride that we all felt was something really cool.
I guess this is kind of a joke because do you think the university is going to do any like marketing with Quinn? Because I know they did the Jake Kumaro socks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if are they going to do like a Quinn Miners shirt or just some sort of, I don't know if socks would be the.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not really sure yet. I think, Quinn obviously hasn't played a snap yet for the Broncos, but I would think something like that will be in order. But I know the bookstore here on campus does a great job with the merchandise and the gear that they sell. We haven't really spoken about it as a department or as as a marketing council. I'm also on our university's marketing council, and no, we haven't spoken about anything like that yet, but but who knows? So
I guess kind of obviously in addition to Quinn Miners, we talked about Kumaro and Blanchard. You could throw in Lake Bacher, who's in the minor league system with the Padres. I guess you can even throw out that Jordan Newman, and I don't know if Brent Campbell still does it, but they both are Bellator fighters. So what does it kind of mean as like an athletic department? You have some athletes that are doing some pretty legit things in terms of the pro level of things.
yeah, they are, and to us, I think a lot of times our coaches talk about the process here at UW-Whitewater, just from when you step on campus as a freshman, through the end of your senior year, whenever you decide to leave campus, the process. If you embrace the process that we have at UW-Whitewater with our veteran coaches and the success that they've had and the culture of accountability for that our student athletes create themselves because they are so competitive and sort of driven to pursue excellence. If you follow that process, you'll achieve your full potential. And I hope that Quinn, at the end of the day, and I know he loves UW-Whitewater, he appreciates UW-Whitewater, but I hope 10 to 15 to 20 years down the line he looks back and says, gee, that was really helpful in getting my career going. And whether and it the thing is, Daniel, we see not only athletes but accountants and teachers and business people. We it's not all about athletics, moving on to professional athletics, as
Yeah,
attending
could
UW
also
Whitewater.
we can also add like maybe student athletes that have gone and become coaches, because there's some
Yes.
good examples of that with Steve Egan, Cody Odegaard. Mary Merg is
Yep.
the head coach at Tulsa East, so there's another part of that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a great point. I mean, a lot of them do go on to become coaches. And honestly, that's even if it's not a college coach, you can coach at the youth level, the high school level, like you alluded to with Cody and Steve, who I believe are both now running their own programs at the high school level. Look at a guy like Brady Gravold, who's now on a Division I coaching staff at St. Thomas in Minnesota. All the way up to that. I mean, you look at
Katie Swiefelhofer.
there you go. Yes,
There's
running
another
her own
one.
good name drop. Yeah,
Yeah.
over in Kenosha at Carthage as the head bowling coach. Yeah, so there's just no matter what they move on to do, I hope that they look back and say, the process here of improving as a student athlete, as a member of the community, I hope that helped them get to where they are now. And a lot of those factors, there's a lot of factors in people advancing to, whatever position they want to advance to. But at the end of the day, I hope that they can look back and say, like, UW-Whitewater athletics helped me accomplish, my dreams and my passions and my goals, not hindered. And fortunately for us, I don't think there's many that would say that it hindered their progress toward that.
Before I kind of hit on some pandemic stuff, I'm gonna throw this in there. How much did that 14 national championships? You said you were at Capital, and that's in the same conference as what Mount Union. Was there kind of a the school I work for finally beat Mount Union or something? Was there any of that or?
Not really,
Okay.
actually. Yeah, because actually Capital was when I was there, they had just hired a new head coach before I left. So they were in a bit of a kind of a rebuilding phase. And because actually I came in my first year and the game against Mount Union was actually very competitive. I think Capital was only down 3-0 at halftime against Mount Union. And I know in the previous years, in the previous 5 years, 5 to 10 years, they had been competitive with Mount Union. But no, there really wasn't much of that, just because I think with Capital, I'd only been there for 3 years.
Okay.
And really in 2 years, they were kind of rebuilding. So beating Mount Union wasn't really a priority for Capital during basically 66% of my time there.
Okay, so now to some pandemic stuff. What were some of the challenges from college sports, from a sports information side of things during the pandemic?
One of the challenges, and this is a very big picture, but content was a huge challenge. And you're in the content business, Daniel, as a writer and as a podcaster. It was really difficult to keep our webpage fresh, to satisfy our end of corporate partnerships that we had or that we still have with various partners in the community. For example, if Qdoba had done something at a basketball game, let's say a burrito eating contest at halftime, we don't have any contests, to do that at, for basically a full calendar year. So how do we creatively, go back to a place like Qdoba and say, okay, here's what we can do for you. You can be the presenting sponsor for a story. You can sponsor a segment of our podcast. You know what I mean? So there were just different challenges with regard to that. And then, because we didn't have games, we didn't have much of a video element or visual element that we could do, with regard to our content. So we got a little creative, and we created some series over those 12 months. We created some different pieces of content. Getting to know the Warhawks is something that we did, and it was kind of a twice weekly, and then it backed up to a weekly deal during this past spring season, when we had kind of a regular competition, or as regular as it can be. We started our podcast actually during the pandemic. That was something, Inside Warhawk Athletics, presented by Educators Credit Union. We started, I believe, in September of 2020. But the summer before that, again, we had to be really creative about, what we are posting on our website, what we can post on social media, and how we can keep our community partners and corporate partners involved with that kind of stuff. One of the things I did right away, or as soon as I could, in that summer of 2020, was I sort of updated the video aspect of all of our facilities, just because, for the foreseeable future, we weren't going to be able to have campus visits for prospective student athletes. So I worked with John Broughton, who's a very, very talented videographer who I think you probably know, Daniel.
Yep.
John was an undergraduate here at UW-Whitewater and was a part of our wrestling program for I think 3 years. And he is an extremely talented videographer who helped me, build up the visual aspect of all of our facilities that we have. So that was a big project that I did last summer. And then I actually this past winter into spring started a series called Dream Season, where I actually look at the best seasons for all of our sports and sort of put them into like an Adobe Spark document and kind of visually showcase all of those seasons that way. So I'm looking to restart that here in the next week or two, kind of getting through this July 4th kind of holiday and week where it's a little bit slow here. And then I'll be restarting that. But we've already done women's and men's basketball, and then softball and baseball. So those were really fun to kind of dig in from a research standpoint and to find some really cool visual elements, videos, photos, graphics from those seasons, and sort of build that piece of content that's sponsored by Kern's Motor Car. So that's what we've had to do, is really be creative from a content standpoint.
Okay, I'm going to jump to this question. How much of an adjustment once sports got back at Whitewater was there to not having crowds for certain events?
To not having fans for certain events?
Yeah.
Is that what you said? Yeah. Yeah, it was strange. I think the first event that we hosted was a men's basketball game on a Wednesday night. Well, I take that back. The first one we hosted on campus was a men's basketball game on a Wednesday night in early February. The first event we actually hosted was a bowling tournament over in Fort Atkinson. We had the Warhawk Classic that our head bowling coach, Leanne Sullivan, put together. And she's really creative and innovative, and did a really good job setting up that tournament, making sure that we were satisfying kind of a capacity requirement from the bowling alley, making sure everyone was wearing masks, that we were as socially distanced as we could be, organizing, getting testing results to our athletic training staff. So that was a really big adjustment, but the bowling alley was nice and wide open too. They had closed it off only to our event for those 2 days. So, it was a Saturday and a Sunday in late January. So that was kind of the first time we had any sort of event. And again, Leanne did such a great job organizing everything, and so it went off without a hitch. Here on campus, one of the things we did was we created fan cutouts that fans could purchase online, and sort of as a donation to the program, for $100 you could have your cutout in the stands for the year. And as you bought more, let's say you bought 5 cutouts, they would eventually become $50 a piece. So that was a really neat thing, because it was sort of a reminder to our student athletes that their parents, their family, their friends, other fans, they really cared about what was happening here, despite the presence of no fans. And B, it was a really nice fundraising initiative for our programs in a year where they didn't have any ticket revenue coming in from hosting 12 to 13 basketball games, or 3 gymnastics meets, or 3 or 4 swimming and diving meets. They were able to get a little bit of that money back through this initiative. So we did that, and that was successful, I think. It was a lot of work. Printing here on campus isn't always easy, but we worked with some of our partners and community print shops to get the job done. And so I think that was cool, and it was appreciated by our coaching staff. And but again, it was very strange without fans here. It's certainly not something that any of us want to go through again. But ultimately, I think we came out of it, getting through. I think we had one game canceled. It was a men's basketball game due to COVID-19 protocols, and that was it. I think everything else went off without a hitch. And we did unfortunately have a couple of our wrestling matches canceled as well toward the end of their season. But all things considered, I thought it was a huge success for the department. And I think a lot of our coaches will tell you that their student athletes were grateful to compete again with their teammates.
I know that cutout thing was kind of a cool thing that you guys did, but then my funny thing about that I joked about on social media is that there should have been one for John Goltz, and just have it be in one section of a game and then just move over to the other section. That was the joke I threw out.
Yeah.
When you guys started doing that.
It's a good fan.
Yeah. People always compared him to me, and I'm like, I mean, I get it, but I'm like, I kind of had to be a journalist at times, and that's not really okay. All joking aside, were there challenges and I guess advantages to there's not really disadvantages with this question, about having more than one sport going on at once, and how helpful was it to also have like UWW TV help out with that, with like maybe you had them out at baseball broadcasting that, so then you could go out and do the softball stuff, or what did you guys do for track and field, because there's so many events going at once?
Yeah, track and field was a challenge, not only because of, like you said, all the events that are happening at once. We hosted a large number of home meets this year too, for both the indoor season and the outdoor season. So that presented a challenge for us because of the logistics of a track and field event, and B, just the number of other events also going on at the same time. So we worked with our campus's audio video lab to secure enough equipment, and they're always very good and easy to work with. You alluded to UWW-TV. They did all of our basketball games from this past year. And so anytime we had a basketball game, we knew that they would be there to broadcast it, and that the production would be excellent, as it always is with Eric Stelter and Jim Mead and the work that they do with their student staff. And then they obviously during the spring would handle the broadcasts for our baseball and softball games as well, which allowed me to broadcast whichever one that they weren't. So if they were broadcasting a baseball doubleheader against Finlandia, well, then that allowed me to go to the press box at Van Steeneren Complex and do the softball doubleheader against UW Oshkosh or whoever it was. So UWW-TV was extremely important. Ryan Callahan, our athletic director, he's now permanent athletic director as of about 7 days ago. He was extremely supportive during this time, and just allowing me to hire staff, to allocate people to different places. My graduate assistant, Nate Tranel, who's also was a member of the Warhawk football team from 2017 to 19. He helped me a lot this past year. He learned quickly and was really, really good, specifically in baseball and softball, and then men's and women's basketball. Kelly Storties was my graduate assistant this past year as well. Was a member of our golf team. She's now working full-time in Madison, but she was really good for us as well. Lucas Peterson is our event manager, and he is multi-talented. He was able to, step in for me to handle baseball stats when I needed to step away. He was really good during basketball season as well. There was a week where I missed a couple of basketball games due to COVID protocol, and he stepped in and seamlessly with Nate and Kelly handled everything that we needed handled at a basketball game. So Lucas Peterson was a savior a few times as well. Jordan Stein, Peter Briggs, a couple of our other office mates here at the Williams Center, they stepped in and helped us when we needed it, for a track meet or something where we needed staff. So we're really lucky to have a lot of support here at UW-Whitewater. And again, Ryan Callahan oversees everything now, and he puts us in position to be successful despite staffing limitations and financial limitations that we have. So it's really a testament to the depth and the talents of the group that we have here in the athletic department.
Okay, this question is, what things did you learn? I feel like I'm going to ask this to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Did you learn during kind of this pandemic side of things that you maybe are going to use in the future that you haven't used in past years in dealing with college sports?
So anything that I learned from this year that I would use
Yep.
in upcoming years. Yeah, I think just the creativity side. I had mentioned just the what we had to do in terms of content, when we don't have any events, and what we have to do in terms of working with our corporate partners. I think now we know that we are capable of doing those things, even if it's a normal season. And so I think that just opens up our inventory a little bit, and we can say, oh yeah, we did this, in February of 2020 in February of 2021 when we didn't have anything going on. Here's what we did, and we'd be happy to do that with you again. So it just kind of opens up our inventory to work with those various corporate partners and external folks to again just enhance our brand and to improve the student athlete experience. I think from a staffing standpoint, I think it opened up a lot of doors for us. We had to put some people in pretty uncomfortable situations, doing things that they weren't accustomed to doing. And so I think a lot of people really sharpened their skills during this time, just to to be kind of Swiss Army knives moving forward, and I include myself in that. I had to do some things that I wasn't used to doing. I did a lot of photography over the last 12 months. I am not a photographer by trade, but it was just something that I had to do. And as a result of kind of trying to keep our bubble here in the athletic department, and that was something that I sort of enhanced a little bit. I improved, and ultimately now I think it's something that I can do a little bit more moving forward as time allows. But I think ultimately we learned a lot we've learned a lot over the past 16 months. And again, I hope we never have to experience it again. But it shows the adaptability and the resiliency of our department. The fact that we did go through it and we had some success as well. I mean, out of our spring sports, we had, 4 conference champions. We had a conference runner up. We had multiple NCAA tournament participants. And actually it was 5 conference champions. I apologize, because men's tennis won the NJAC West Division. So really it was 5 championships, a runner up, and then some NCAA tournament appearances. So we found a way to make it work, and our teams were, just as successful, if not more successful, over the past 16 months.
Okay, I'm gonna end this section of it before I get to my last section of this. We saw a little bit of a return of kind of more fans with the baseball postseason, having more of a crowd. How do you see the fall looking like from a crowd standpoint at different events? And then I guess as I throw in the game that I'm looking forward to, since my brother went to Carthage, and obviously I mentioned Dr. Jim Ripley at Carthage, and Greg Berg also is a vocal teacher at Carthage. But will there be full capacity at places like Perkins Stadium come September 4th against Carthage for football games, or like what kind of protocols are going to be mandated for fans?
Yeah, so at this point, Daniel, we don't have the answer to that, but as things can turn quickly. Whether it's the good way, which would be for us to have 100% full capacity with no social distancing and no masking. The other end of that would be if somehow the Delta variant reaches Wisconsin and we have to kind of go back down to maybe 50% capacity with masking and social distancing. But Steve Hilmer, our director of sports medicine here at UW-Whitewater, does a lot of good work for us. He's highly involved in his network of people across NCAA Division III and across all divisions, really. And he, I talked to him a couple weeks ago for our podcast, and he at this point basically said, there's just still a lot that has to play out over the next 2 months. The NCAA has released some protocols in terms of what our teams can do, in terms of practicing and what they can and can't do. They have to be vaccinated at a level of 85%. So if 85% or more of the team is vaccinated, they can practice and compete without masking requirements. But if it's under that level, they'll need to continue to get tested, and then there will be masking requirements in certain settings. So those types of things have been laid out by the NCAA, but in terms of the capacities and things like that, I think as a campus, we still have to iron that out. I know that the campus has just announced that basically we will be going back to kind of a normal pre-pandemic level of courses that are in person. So at a university level, they've kind of decided that. To my knowledge, at least, there hasn't been a ton of discussion in terms of capacity limits and all that. But all I know is, it'll be fun to see, any kind of crowd at, any of our games this fall. And certainly September 4th against Carthage, I know, is a day that a lot of people on campus are looking forward to because of the importance and the the passion for football on this campus.
I know I'm looking forward to that one because obviously been waiting for that matchup for about maybe over 10 years just to get some bragging rights over some people that
Yep.
I never thought we'd have a Whitewater Carthage football matchup. So might as well let's touch on what are your kind of expectations for Coach Lippold at Kansas?
Wow. I mean, as somebody who worked with him for a year, and so I don't know him like that well. He's somebody that I've reached out to since he's left Whitewater and since he's left Buffalo, once or twice. But I think he's going to do what he always does, which is kind of put his head down, go to work. He's going to push that program to their fullest potential. And I don't know what that is at Kansas. The Big 12 is a really good conference for football. They've got powerhouses. Oklahoma, Oklahoma State has had some success. Kansas State, I mean, it seems like Baylor, it seems like all of those programs have been highly successful, and Kansas has been one that's kind of been in that lower tier of the league for as far back as I can remember. So I think for him, if he can get to a bowl game, have a winning season, I think that would be a success in and of itself. And I'm not saying this year, he's that's I don't know how, that's not obviously not and shouldn't be an expectation, but I think he can build that program into into whatever the highest in terms of potential that it has, because he's a hard worker. He's got a great staff around him: Andy Kotelnicki, Brian Borland, Jim Zabrowski, all the people that were here at Whitewater with him and have been with him since he left. So I would expect him to maximize that program's potential, whatever that is, in a league that's among the top 5 in the country.
Do you feel like maybe his Whitewater experience can be kind of a little bit of a advantage to him in this situation, because obviously the basketball program over there has had a lot of success, and obviously when he was at Whitewater, obviously the football program has had so much success, but all the other programs at Whitewater kind of that Russell Wilson mentality of why not us? Do you think he kind of like his time at Whitewater will help him in that situation?
I certainly think so. And, kind of looking bigger picture at it, I think, football is football, whether it's, Division I, Division II, Division III, NAIA, high school, Pop Warner, youth, whatever, flag football. I mean, I think football is football, and, he knows how to coach football, and he knows how to motivate student athletes. And, I think those are things that are going to help him wherever he goes. And, and you look at what he built at UW-Whitewater in Buffalo, and he's 2 for 2. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I think it's because of the job he does, being a football coach. And so I think it certainly does help him in a spot like Kansas, to have that experience at UW-Whitewater, and and to take a program that's perennially been in that lower tier and bring them to the upper tier of that league.
All right, so some non Whitewater stuff.
Mhm.
What teams do you cheer for, and what stadiums have you been to?
So I'm a fan of all the Wisconsin sports teams. I grew up in Appleton, which is a couple hours north of UW-Whitewater, a little bit north of Oshkosh. But I cheer for the Brewers, the Bucks, the Badgers. I went to Wisconsin, so I'm a Badger fan. I Obviously the Packers as well. I mean, growing up 20 minutes south of Lambeau Field, it was a big part of the culture in the Fox cities. So I cheer for them as well. I've been fortunate enough to be at Lambeau Field on probably, I'd say, 15 to 20 times for games. My parents are season ticket holders, and obviously we just have a lot of connections to folks in the Valley. So that's an awesome venue. Camp Randall is as good as it gets for college
I
football.
have yet to be there or to the Kohl
Wow.
Center.
Yeah. Yeah.
Call me crazy, but I was hoping Lance was going to stick it out more at Buffalo for
Yeah.
2023.
Yeah, right, because they're playing the Badgers. That's right.
Yep.
But yeah, those two, obviously, the Kohl Center and Camp Randall are near and dear to my heart. I've been to Fiserv. I've been to obviously American Family Field, formerly Miller Park. One of the cooler venues I've ever been to is Madison Square Garden. My
Okay.
wife and I saw a Knicks game probably 7 or 8 years ago. So it was when they had like Amari Stoudemire and Ray Felton. It was back in actually it was closer to 10 years. I think it was 2011. And they had just gotten Amari, I think. And so there was a lot of buzz in the Garden. And it's just an amazing venue to watch a basketball game. So I've been fortunate enough to be there. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of some other ones. Wrigley Field I've been to for Cubs Brewers games. That's obviously a place that's near and dear to a lot of people, especially a lot of UW-Whitewater alums. I know there's there's a large contingent of Cubs fans among some of our alums, but Soldier Field I've been to for a Packers Bears game. So I've been really fortunate to be in a lot of cool venues as not only a UW-Whitewater employee and of the athletic department, but as just a fan of sports.
Okay, so might as well hit on these two subjects. Obviously I was at game 3 in the Deer District for the Bucks Nets series. Me and Mike Kramchak got 2 tickets for the Bucks game 5 against the Hawks. What are your thoughts on the Bucks getting to the NBA Finals?
I think it's awesome for Milwaukee. I live in the Milwaukee area, excuse me, and I've seen how it's kind of rallied, our community that we live in. And I've been to American Family Field over the last couple weeks for a game, and just seeing everybody in their Bucks gear, and it's really bringing a lot of people together, which is what sports does, and that's why it's so cool to see fans back at venues. I think one of the first NBA playoff games I watched was a Knicks Hawks game, and it was at Madison Square Garden, and that environment was electric. And I can't imagine what it's like for at Fiserv Forum or in the Deer District for a Bucks finals game. So I think it's awesome for Milwaukee, and it's awesome for the community. I'm not somebody I guess if I had to classify myself, I would be a bandwagon fan of the Bucks. I was not somebody who suffered through the years of Brandon Jennings and Michael.
Me.
I believe it. You're Mr. Wisconsin sports, but for me, I didn't suffer through all those years, and even some of the early Giannis years when they were kind of just building something. But over the last 3 years, I've been very engaged in watching them. I think it's really awesome, and it's great for Milwaukee, and it's a chance for the city to really showcase itself, on a national spotlight. And game 3 coming up here on Sunday, which is at Fiserv, will be a spectacle. I was at the first Brewer game that they had, the first Brewer playoff game that they had in 26 years, back in 2008, when the Brewers played the Phillies in the wild card round.
A nice little 3-1 victory. Dave Bush with the win, Solomon Torres with the save.
Yeah, you got it right.
Did Jason Kendall do something in that game? I don't remember.
He might have, yeah, but I definitely remember Dave Bush pitching, and I believe it was the only game we won in the series. But
the next day, and
yeah.
I brought this up to J.R. Radcliffe and whatnot because no one remembers this.
Yeah.
There was a pop up the next game that hit one of the wires.
Oh,
and it fell down, and all things, Craig Counsell was just sitting on his rear end and caught it.
Oh, geez, that's awesome. Yeah, so I would imagine, my point in saying that is, I would imagine game 3 on Sunday will be something like that. Just the energy in the building, hosting a finals game for the first time since 1974. So really this is the first game of that magnitude in that arena, for this generation, and probably the generation prior to it that, probably doesn't remember much about 74. So
especially with we never got an NBA finals in the Bradley Center.
yeah, exactly. Right.
The other thing I want to touch on is the Saga 2.0 in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers. What do you think happens there? How weird was it to have one of the things that popped up during that was the whole, he was mad that Jake Kummerow got cut.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know our football staff had some fun with that on our Twitter account. But no, I just, again, like I care immensely about that community, about that Green Bay area and the Fox cities. And what I just hope that the franchise can continue to have success, because I know what their success means for the businesses in Green Bay, and honestly, the businesses in Appleton too. It trickles down to the Fox cities. I know what their success means for those businesses, and so no matter what happens with Aaron, or with Jordan Love moving forward, I just hope that the Packers can continue to be competitive, because it means so much to those restaurants, those bars, those hotels, those places in the Fox cities in Green Bay, that franchise is successful. Because Wisconsin sports fans are pretty black and white. If you're a winner, they're in. When you're not, they're not. All those years that, and I've been a long-suffering Brewers fan, kind of the opposite of what I've been for the Bucks. But as a long-suffering Brewers fan, watching those teams lose 100 games, and they get maybe 12,000 people for a Saturday game. And now to see it, being sold out for a game like that during a normal time, during a non-pandemic time, I know it's clear. I mean, it's clear that Wisconsin sports fans back a winner. And you can't say the same. For every town. You look at Cleveland, the Indians have been winning for the last 5 years, and they can barely get 20,000 people in their stadium. So, but anyway, yeah. So I've seen what the success of the Packers means, and for not only that area, but I'm sure the entire state. So whatever happens, I just hope that they can continue to have the amount of success that they've had in the past 30 years.
Okay, this last outside of UW-Whitewater question is favorite non-Whitewater sports moments. So like anything with the Bucks or the Brewers or the Packers.
Man. Yeah, so I think as a fan, I guess that Brewers, that game 3 of the wild card series in 2008 was an awesome moment to see the energy inside Miller Park, and just the overall, just the joy that people had that playoff baseball was back in Wisconsin was something I'll never forget. When I was a young kid, this was back in 1995, so I was about 10 years old. I was at a game where the Packers clinched the division. We were playing the Steelers, and it was a pass, and I'm dating myself with these names. You might know him, but like Neil O'Donnell was the quarterback for the Steelers.
Okay.
And he threw a pass to Yancey Thigpen in the end zone, and Thigpen was wide open, dropped it, and the Packers clinched the division. So that was back in 1995 when, again, I was 10 years old, but that was one moment that really sticks out for me as well with the Packers. And then obviously, being at Wisconsin, the Final Four runs for the Badgers were awesome. During my time there, winning the Big Ten championship, and actually working for the team over my 4 years, and being a part of that Big Ten men's basketball championship in 2008 was something I'll never forget too.
Okay. I was hoping you're going to say the Aaron Rodgers Hail Marys too.
Oh, sure. Well, of course, but I just thought you meant like in person,
Okay, yeah, that
because
too.
those were like, in all the ones I described were in person moments.
Okay. All right. So this last question is UW-Whitewater has been a sports powerhouse. definitely the last 20 years. How exciting or any of that is for you to be obviously the sports information director and be connected to all that?
Yeah, and that's one of the things when I speak in Joe Corallo's class, and when I speak to people about what I do at UW-Whitewater, that's one of the most special things is that I get to be like an insider into something that's much bigger than me or into
Mhm.
much bigger than any personality or coach that we have in our department.
So you're
There,
you're basically the time. I know when I also use a kind of a Whitewater connection
mm,
thing. You're kind of the Tom Haudricourt of UW Whitewater, I guess.
yeah. Yeah, and Tom's great. Tom covers football. When we've been fortunate enough to be in the playoffs, he's been the guy to cover us. So that is a good connection there. But yeah, essentially I am. I'm the beat writer for all 22 of our teams, and it's a privilege, because like I said, to see our coaches and our athletes work on a day-to-day basis to be successful is really rewarding, and it motivates me to be better, not only as an employee but as a father, as a husband, and as a member of the community. So that's the biggest thing, is that UW Whitewater athletics will outlast anything, or it will outlast all of us, even who are here working in the department now. And just sort of just continuing to build on what those legends kind of built here. You alluded to Chris Russell, I think, earlier, and Jim Miller, and Bob Brezowitz, and Forrest Perkins, and Dave Vandermeulen, and Diane Jones, and what all those people built here, and just continuing that legacy, and leaving it in a better place than you found it.
I guess what's the coolest or the place that you never thought you'd end up going through your sports information role?
At UW Whitewater, that's a good question. Uh, Trying to think of somewhere that we went. Um, Honestly, I would say Salem back in 2014,
Okay.
not because it was a remote location or anything like that, but just because it was a national championship game. In my career, I've never been, a central figure to to an event like that, and I am like the media relations guy for UW Whitewater, one of the two teams left standing in Division III football. And I don't know, in my career I never quite realized that, man, I this is a national championship game. And I appreciate it more and more as I think about it now. And having gone back in 2019, even though the game didn't turn out how we wanted it to, was special as well. So I would say Salem, just because it was kind of my like eye-opening moment that, hey, like I'm participating in a national championship game, or the team's participating in a national championship game, and I'm part of the deal, and I get to be on the field, and I get to be in the press box. And that was probably the one place I didn't think I'd be.
Um, I was gonna throw this one in there. I was thinking about this recently. If you had to rank the programs at UW Whitewater in terms of success, how would you, obviously you begin and start with football, but where would you have some of the other sports?
Oh man, I mean that's hard because I think you have to look at the historical context of where some of those programs have been, and how far they've come.
Mm,
Because you look at like the swimming and diving programs, for instance, like really up until the last decade, they've been the bottom of the conference every single year. And now all of a sudden, in the past 6 or 7 years, they've had each program's had a couple of runner-up finishes in the conference, which 30 years ago would have been unheard of. So I it's hard to rank them. I mean, certainly you look
that
at
probably
just.
gives you an idea for something.
Yeah,
So
right, exactly. Yeah, but I mean, yeah, and I'll credit you if I use the idea, but football and gymnastics have been the two programs that have won national championships since I've been here. So I guess if I had to rank programs, I guess those would be the two that would stick out because of their national championships. But honestly, Daniel, like all of our programs have had enormous amounts of success. I mean, if I sat down and, you could even rank each team for itself, like 2018 softball getting to the super regional, the baseball team in 2016 making it to the World Series when we had Lake Bacher and Cal Aldridge and Austin Jones. Yeah. I mean, so you could even look team by team and rank them that way. But yeah, it would be really hard to do that and probably put me in a compromising position. Compromise me a little bit in the eyes.
I kind of go, I'll say you go football 1, I go baseball 2.
Okay.
So they've been to the D3 World Series multiple times in Vo's tenure.
Yep.
I go 3 is going to be really surprising. Volleyball.
Oh, okay.
Because there was that stretch of 25 years in a row of them getting to the NCAAs. They got snapped. And I thought that's kind of something that's just really impressive. So those would be the top 3, maybe gymnastics after that. And then
you're talking historically now, just like,
yeah.
Okay.
And then men's basketball, women's basketball. And I think that's kind of where I would go from there.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's hard because all of our programs have been successful to some degree over the last 30 years. So.
All right, Chris. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Podcast on D-Shot. Thanks for everybody for listening and watching.
Thanks, Daniel. I appreciate the time. Thanks for all you do.
Thanks.